sunlight. When they walked up to me, I told him, unless this shit is live or dead, do not begin talking because we are standing in the sun. And this man started spouting my blue pens, measurements, and some fucking valves or some shit. And I immediately realized that he wasn't even talking about what I was working on. So I told him I didn't give a shit because I had done started sweating. My cheeks were getting red and he was pissing me. Okay? We all just need to be happy. I didn't slap the shit out of him for wasting my time and making me stand in that sunlight for 8 minutes to tell me about some shit that didn't even involve me. Alright? Alright. Okay. I greatly appreciate you not slapping the shit out of me. We would have had to have a whole different meeting. Guys, we have got to figure out this communications problem, okay? The profanity, the cursing, the violent nature of your speech. I mean, some people aren't understanding what you're trying to tell them. They're just getting offended. Can any of you please bring a resolution forward that would work for all of us where we can squash this communication problem? Anybody? Ricky, what do you think? It's something.
Hey, don't come looking for me for answers, okay? Everybody seems to be understanding what everybody else is saying except you, okay? If you don't understand what I'm saying the first time, then next time you're trying to stop. You think I'm gonna fucking two-piece translation, okay? It is too damn much to be repeating myself and too damn much to be fucking around. So if anybody you can meet me and you will get a two-piece translation. And if you unemployment and to go and reach out to vocabulary. That is my resolution to the problem and hope. What do you think?
What about? I think you, vulgar, profane, gentlemen have left me no choice. And I'm gonna have to ban profanity on the job site. That's all there is to it. No more cussing on the job site for immediate write-up. Does everybody understand that? Finally, free or free speech. That is a right that I have. No, it does not cover that, okay? It does not cover profanity in the workplace. It's a private company. We can limit what you say, all right? Now, how are you going to sit there and say that's not what it means, okay? He was probably there when the fucking Freedom of Speech Act was written, okay? He was probably there and watched them sign it down on a piece of paper, okay? He knows what it means. He was not there when it was written. He's not that old. But you know what? All of you just go out there and keep screaming profanity at each other and don't come crying to me when one of you gets your feelings hurt, okay? Do not come crying to me. This meeting is over. Y'all can all go fuck yourself. And if you don't like what I just told you, you ain't got to meet me at the game for that two-piece translation. You can get this shit right here, right now, to save you some fucking time. Because I know every single one of y'all has already fucked off for at least 2 hours today. So, let's not fuck about. Hey, whoa, man, calm down a little bit. You use your words to express how you feel. I mean, honestly, that's just a little bit vulgar and violent. We don't expect that. I mean, you need to calm down a little bit, okay? He needs to calm down, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah. I mean, go take a chill pill. I don't know why you're so angry. Do you need somebody to talk to? Are you all right?
Look, you got better odds playing checkers on a leopard's ass than actually pulling that off. It's not going to work. We have to fire him. Okay? We've done this long enough. The only person who has their name on more write-up...
Conley is art. Molly one is eight. Transformed.
Corporations at Borderlands Universe are definitely an interesting topic for sure, and a side of the lore that I love discussing. Whether new information comes out or previously known things about these companies are expanded upon, it makes a large part of me excited and joyous, whilst also maintaining a small part of skepticism and reluctance, particularly nowadays. Expanding on previously void parts of lore can be extremely difficult for both players and the developers behind it, especially with super contentious decisions made around why these corporations or militaries exist in the first place and what their goals even are. Borderlands is no different from any other game, providing engaging lore and stories, while also leaving room for theory and skepticism around certain decisions. The development team, and more specifically the writers, have all had the power behind what these corporations have, what they are, and what they do. And it seems that in recent times they have seemingly fell off all in terms of consistent narrative, lore accuracy, and overlapping decisions. However, with the release of Borderlands 4 Deep Dive, we were introduced to 3 brand new manufacturers: Order, Ripper, aka Bandit, and Daedalus, and lost a few from previous games like Hyperion and Atlas. So I thought I'd talk about the already established megacorporations and brands tip to date. We're going to be exploring and explaining every company's smallest details: who they are, what they do, what they want, how they do it, and how they contribute to the overall story of Borderlands, if at all. So, hiya, it's LFX and welcome back. Now, this series I'm starting with this video is slightly different to my literally every series you may be familiar with. Whilst that one is a bit more comedic, meme-filled, and in general a lot more fast-paced and in your face when it comes to the information, this new series is going to be a bit more chilled out and relaxing, giving the contrast to my main series while still relaying stuff I find interesting and engaging. If you like this sort of video, let me know by dropping a like and a sub and I'll continue. If not, that's no problem, as I am of course still continuing my literally every series and they are not going anywhere, so feel free to watch them whenever you like. Vamos! So who or what are these corporations or militaries? The corporations in the Borderlands universe essentially come down to the manufacturers that appear in all games. These are companies that are as simple as being producers of shields, being the literal main villains of an entire story. They all also have their own way of operating, all have their own agendas, and all provide you with some sort of equipment during your time in the games. The militaries in the Borderlands universe are the same for the most part. There are exceptions here and there based around certain manufacturers not really having anything known about them aside from their general presence in the universe, or not being militaries at all and purely being manufacturers of weapons and supplies. Companies like SNS Munition, Hanshin, and Pangolin fit in here perfectly. In terms of what we know right now, Bandit, Scav/COV is the only manufacturer at this current point that I can say with 100% certainty is the only one that is not a corporation and has no military presence behind it /them/what? Whilst, yes, they do technically have an army in the COV themselves, it's not an operation that has leverage as a military. It has no company behind it, and it is literally just a wacky fool that happens to also make weapons. So, for that distinction and for the sake of straightforwardness, I'm not including it as a Borderlands universe military or company. Then there's the topic of Iridian 2. I've also decided that I'm not going to be including that as a company or manufacturer with a military backing. Whilst, yes, they are a manufacturer in all of the games, they don't make stuff specifically for player use, just happen to have shit that we can pick up and use, whether that be guns in the first game, relics in the second, or the wacky gun in 3. COV at least have the argument of making stuff specifically to use and actually have an army, but boo-hoo la-di-da. So, yeah, Iridian is off the list too. When it comes to the actual militaries themselves, there is disparities. Some operate as massive armies that occupy entire worlds and go on huge operations, whilst others are more privatized groups with lesser known means as to why they even exist in the first place. Generally, of course. It's super interesting to me to see how they all operate, their army structure, the way they attack, ships they use, and the style of military that they have based all the manufacturers themselves on. The most exciting part of these companies, and why I absolutely love them in these games, is the involvement that they have within the main stories. This is why I'm super hyped with the premise behind Borderlands 4. You see, in every Borderlands game that we've had so far, you can probably tell, we have had some sort of military as the main or secondary threat of the game, hunting us down, taking control, and trying to either 1, get what we want, 2, try to stop us from getting what we want, or a bit of both. Borderlands 1 gave us Atlas, Borderlands 2 gave us Hyperion, 3 sequel gave us Dahl, and 3 kinda gave us Malcolm. And even New Tales had Tediore, but we'll get to that abomination when we actually talk about Tediore later. Atlas, Hyperion, and Dahl are the companies that I like to refer to as the Big Three when it comes down to their involvement in the series, the power they seem to have at certain points, and the pure fanfare that they have gathered through their presence. These 3 will have the most lore behind them, as they are actually currently the most explored companies in Borderlands, so get ready for a whole lot of exposition on those. I am going to start off by covering the lesser known companies and corporations, militaries, and then down to the more important megacorporations and militaries that we see popping up all over the universe. Now we're starting off with...
He hasn't let much information slip, but I know that he found some sort of device abandoned in deep space. He wants to use it in an attack so horrible.
Not much is known about SNS Munitions. Being a manufacturer of guns and ammunition only in the first game, it took pride in years. High technological prowess over its competition. They also quoted as fatal reload, as it is something you do after your target is dead. The company was founded by the SNS brothers.
I'm done with
names
the Klingons.
unknown.
Some
These
of them
two
are
clearly had a large
but
passion for
Ravad
weaponry,
cannot be
which you can see
trusted.
from their very own
His
SNS
desire for
Munitions
war with the
story.
Federation
The
has
industry
blinded
first
him.
founded SNS Munitions did so with the goal to not just make a weapon, but to change an industry. As avid outdoorsmen with time in the military, they knew the power of your weapon only mattered when it was reloaded, kind of seeing their clips run dry for us in opportune times. They set out to develop the highest capacity guns on the market. SNS Munitions is now a standard bearer for large capacity,
They want
easy to
improved
change
disruptors and
magazines.
torpedoes for their
Today,
ships.
our commitment to functional technological advancements doesn't
Very
end there.
specific.
SNS Munitions also makes some of the most powerful tech weapons on the market. The power and capacity are your concerns. Say yes, SNS. This story in the way that we operate, it's a pretty good guess that SNS never had
They
any
want a
ability
weapon that can punch through solid neutronium, which is impossible. And they keep talking about torpedoes, with payloads big enough to destroy a small planet. There are prototypes of some of the new weapons in the laboratory, as well as schematics on the base computers. If I were you, I'd destroy the prototypes and the schematics. Neither side needs that kind of destructive power.
It's possible they've been on business for reasons, even if financially stable. It's not operating as part of space. Not then, also to the extra good they can keep up with prices and operations for a time period and then use them to sign it ventures. Or even simply, they were great at making weapons, but struggled with managing the business side of things. It is all just theoretical at this point. Anything is better than the bandit theory, though. Those fuckers can't even spell for a gun names properly, let alone run a business on an entire planet. Whilst SNS Munitions aren't kicking anymore, another company under the name SNS Accessories is still operational, with it being pretty clear this is the same corporation, or at least the same operation as the original SNS, just with a different name. These days, SNS have moved away from making weaponry and more to the side of involving themselves in other ways. Being the producers of the beams of light that you see when items of different rarities are on the floor, they frequently play radio ads in Borderlands 3, flaunting their new venture. They did mention that they were also an ammo supplier. Whilst this is something that seemingly disappeared, I don't think the reasoning is too much different to the general decline of their weapon side. It also makes a lot of sense as they got rid of their weapon-based items from their name, being replaced with many other manufactured ammo later down the line. When it comes to the timeline, it's a bit foggy as to when they stopped SNS Munitions and became SNS Accessories. Did they take a few years to leave their munitions bits behind? Are the same lights of Borderlands 2 also produced by SNS? And many questions, but seemingly not enough in the lore to point us to an answer, unfortunately. Sometimes it is good to speculate and have headcanons for this type of stuff, and sometimes it's good to just know everything. For SNS, I'm just glad they were still mentioned in a Borderlands game after the first one. The darkest corners of the forest, its shadows stretched along the air as thick with secrets. Slithers a creature unlike any other. Covered in armour as hard as bone, its scales gleam faintly in the dim light, sharp enough to pierce the very earth it falls upon. It moves with a silent, unsettling grace, its beady eyes glowing with a cold, calculating intelligence. The pangolin. Beware, where the pangolin treads, you dare follow. Not much is known about pangolins either, being the least explored company in the series. They don't take to guns manufacturing, instead focusing their time into making mostly defensive equipment, much like their name suggests. They produce high-capacity shields, being higher than any muster, but at a cost. They also pretty much dominate the grenade industry, being the base grenade that pretty much anyone and everyone will use grenade modifications on. Now, I have no idea how this could realistically fit into the lore, but pangolin turtle shields famously take away your health. Maybe they're a terrible company that somehow temporarily poisons and leeches you when you have no shield, which overcharges all their equipment to such a massive degree. That would make sense to how they seem to consistently overshadow every other company when it comes to pure capacity in their shields. Their grenades don't seem to have any technology like this, as it seems they utilize the market only at base level, with other corporations making the grenade mods that go on top of it. Their main focus is shields, however, so it would make sense that they would use the technology on them, and therefore that market. Being producers of symbols of life-creating power to boost other elements is a super interesting theory as to how their company operates. I imagine that they were like basically every other corporation, aka extremely evil and not moral in a single sense. That sort of exploitation of their workforce would make a lot of sense. Once again, this is just all speculation. The only thing we know for sure is that they are clearly a popular company and have kept themselves so far in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they've been around since at least before Borderlands 1, and have stuck around in every single game with seemingly zero advertisements for any of their products. They are almost the complete opposite of anything like Gnarls just has to have their logo slapped absolutely everywhere. They've only ever had any form of exposure and brand flaunting in two places. Mad Moxie's Underdome, with Moxie reading advertisements for the company aloud, and in grenade advertisements scattered all across Pandora and Elpis. Today is your chance to make the most important decision of your life. Buy a pangolin shield. Say hello to a future tomorrow. Say hello to a pangolin shield. Pangolin, safety first. Pangolin, protect your hide. Whilst Pangolin do make mainly shields, they also weirdly make class mods for Vault Hunters in Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel. However, no class mod in Borderlands 3 and manufactured at all, which leads me to believe that the class mods having manufacturers in their own games is all purely something, and they don't actually make class mods.
Face to face, I have you have lost this.
It makes no sense. Why would Pangolin make a clearly Dar manufacturing and design class mod for accident that gives him more health? That goes against everything that the brand has mentioned since me. Also, they Pangolin class mod using health, but like every other brand changed between the events of Borderlands 1 and 2, so once again, it doesn't really mean much. The way Moxie advertised Pangolin also adds more to my argument, as she only talks about buying shields. The only one where she's even slightly vague is the Pangolin safety first, but honestly, you can apply that to manufacturers to make literally anything, and it's they would be extremely cool if they don't use firearms of any kind. Aside from that, Pangolin still remains extremely quiet and low-key, with a lot of gaps that could be filled in any kind of new information. Honestly, there's not enough info to piece together anything about this company. They're pretty much an entirely blank slate to be worked on if Gearbox have decided to. We have no idea who they are, how big they are, CEO is nothing. I didn't mention everything. Honestly, it's hard to keep life in the games. Concept and military have been very interesting. Focus more on the military aspect, having thick armor and a slow way of engaging in combat and inducing damage. Considering it's not much to come off, it's quite impressive what they pick up. It's easy to set the mind to the warrior ideas on how to operate the cause and see what people think. Expecting souls. Soft and flow, your newly fresh spring, as gentle breeze bed. Anshin shields have a shield for every situation. Anshin. Up until very soon, there are ideas as to how Pangolin will operate as an opposing force, and it's really cool to see what people think. I really more expected yourself this way. and stop producing grenades of any kind, they have seemingly switched from a mix of offensive and defensive equipment in the past to now prioritize exclusively defensive over anything. Always. Their shield utilizes a special and trademark enhancement called adaptive technology. This term refers to the fact that
I've read the after-action report filed by Lieutenant Van Zyl. Pity we weren't able to apprehend the Vox, but I'm glad we shot Admiral. Congratulations, you're the right officer.
Years after they started operating, though, with a specific amount of them. But we do know that the shields they use to self-operate on fast recharge rates instead. This technology they've developed shows that the company of Anshin is clearly very advanced with their operations and possess some of, if not the most high-grade technology of all the manufacturers, which could add a lot of speculation to their apparent military force/operation. When it comes to the other products Anshin supply, they are also based around healthcare and general wellness. They famously make all of the Health Now products that you can find in all doctors and nurse need event machines in the Borderlands. An unexpected appearance of products Anshin supply at the customization stations, making all of the availability of Jade machines standard across every planet, meaning that they are also in the fashion business. My theory for how the internals of this business work is that they only make the default color schemes for people to use, then let other brands pay them. People can use the machines to apply their schemes too. A certain theory has arisen recently that Anshin are also in the robot-making business, less similar to a company called Imperium though. Anshin's logo throughout many years remained a dull, yet slightly rugged basic piece of text, not really giving away any brand theme or style. But before the events of Borderlands 3 occurred, they decided to rebrand. This could not be any more different to their original branding, and gave off a very ninja and samurai theme, linking to ties with Asian culture. Because of this bold rebranding of the company, many speculated that Geisha bots have been manufactured and distributed by Anshin to planets and moons within the Borderlands. The only one that we have seen so far is named Serena, whose only appearance in the series to be on Elpis. Seeing as how she doesn't mix with any aesthetic of any other company, or really anything within the Borderlands universe that we've seen so far in general, it could be very much possible that Anshin were the ones behind her and many others like her. Since Serena is the only one we know of, it's unknown whether that is a brand name like Background or merely an adopted one. At this time, however, it's not official, so take it however you want. It's safe to say that they definitely had a strong hold on the health market from minimal and engage in business with many planets and companies vast distances away from each other at night. This is clearly done in a very subtle manner too, with barely any advertisements around, only really being seen once again in boxes under. When it comes to military backing within the company, nothing is official, with no spaceships, army, or any other lethal units of any kind ever being seen. The only link we do officially have towards Anshin potentially having some military presence is through Zane, who mentions that it used to do jobs for Anshin back in his Hitman days, and mentioning using a hollow jammer for a specific mission. The problem here is that it still doesn't link towards any proof of Anshin operating an army or military of any kind, only that they engage in malfeasance and malpractice. And speaking on technical terms, anyone could and has done that. It's Borderlands. We know that many characters in the universe have asked multiple Vault Hunters to kill someone or something specifically, and gives you a reward for that. So it sounds like the definition of a hit being given out, not a military backup or presence. To me, it makes them come across as sharp at least, but honestly, when looking at all these companies, there's not really one that comes off as any less either, aside from maybe Netflix. When it comes down to the way this military could potentially look, the speculation is a lot more interesting than Pangolin, as their logo hints to a variation design. This could lead to things such as mechs, ninja-style robots, and humans being part of their forces, engaging in melee combat. This would make the most sense, seeing as how Samurai know their melee prowess, and should make great shields with extremely high technological prowess, and they also make no other weaponry of any kind. If you want to include Serena and the Geisha bots as part of headcanon too, then it's easy to look for her for inspiration as how Anshin could potentially come across. Little reasoning is actually given as to why the companies such as Anshin haven't really been expanded upon at all. One could assume it's to do with giving the spotlight to the other corporations the developers could really sink their creative juices into, but I don't know. Anshin probably just didn't jump out to anyone in particular as a major threat or particularly interesting subject to cover in the grand scope of the universe. But still, if creating these companies, you've at least updated their logo to something more interesting. Give us something, Gearbox, please. A general improvement on the company companies that have come before, Jacobs is a slightly more established and well-known corporation than the ones previously mentioned. We only truly come to find out more intricate details about the Jacobs family and their overall involvement in the universe during and after the events of Borderlands 3, mainly due to being able to visit the home planet of the family itself and the current residency of the now Jacobs CEO, Wainwright. The Jacobs family is being simply quality firearms for 300 years. And although the world has changed quite a lot since both Murray's father bolted on the sailor who had written the company's first law, our family tradition and commitment to build a superior product still through them. The employees of Jacobs may not all share the same last name anymore, but we're still family. We want you to join us. When you invest in the Jacobs, you're not only getting the most powerful firearm money can buy, we're also joining the biggest family of satisfied gun owners the world over. Whether you're shouldering one of our renowned rifles or staring down the barrel of one of our timeless pistols, you can be sure each and every shot packs the reliability and strength that only a Jacobs can offer. Be your cut-and-dry Western stereotype company, Jacobs focuses mainly on your typical trimmers, bolt-action snipers, revolvers, and break-action double-barrel shotguns. They are also known to venture down less obvious Western-style paths, such as the production of wheel guns, Gatling rifles, and semi-automatic snipers. In 99% of cases, they also steer clear of any sort of elemental weaponry, representing a simpler time of munition production where silly little things like fire and electricity are things you would cook your dinner with, not your enemies. They do not mass-produce shields, however. One special shield with the name of the Rough Rider somehow did make it into development, though. It uses the chassis of Pangolins trademark turtle shields and functions in a similar manner to Anshan's adaptive technology, as it grants resistance and health bonuses to the welder. This provides a convincing reason why the concept of Jacob shields in general clearly never made it past the prototype stages, as they essentially ripped two separate companies off and had nothing new to offer. Anshan had certainly gotten wind of this concept and had taken it from Jacobs, as you can officially obtain the Rough Rider again, though this time under the Anshan name and not the Jacobs one. The presence that Jacobs have in and around the universe aren't just in the way of weaponry, however, as they seem to provide some sort of fuel system to repel Pandora and Eden 6. Many tankers scattered all across the planet ranked with the Jacobs logo. It's unknown whether they merely provide the tankers pump systems or the actual fuel itself, but it would be beyond the company, as they do produce their own gunpowder and whiskey, so making some sort of oil or fuel source isn't big. Jacobs seem to have a hand in real estate as well, as hinted by a faded billboard spotted along the highways in the secret armory of General Knox. The sign advertises for rent, mad scientist laboratory, suggesting that even the most eccentric Pandorian tenants can find a place to call home, courtesy of Jacobs. The Jacobs Corporation prides itself on a long-standing family history and line of CEOs that span back generations. Being the initial founder of the company and great-grandfather to current CEO Wainwright, Singleton and Talbot Jacobs had been described as an obsessively detail-oriented man with a responsibility on his shoulder and pride in his step. Singleton was unfortunately shot in the face by a robber while distracted by the bore of the robber's rifle, leaving the company to its son and second CEO, Walter Jacobs.
Starfleet Intelligence.
Recognition
Admiral Quinn says you're the
mustaches, steering the company towards galactic success. However, his legacy was also one for insatiable greed and controversial views on trucks and immigration. His life came to a rather unfortunate end when he suffered a fatal accident in his factory.
Welcome to the last bastion. Your team will need to take down.
Walter Jr., with the Maddox and Raven Wainwright Jacobs, had never been stated to want any involvement with the family business, almost the exact opposite, in fact. He was seen to be extremely paranoid about the relation he had to his family and the last name he possessed, to the point of almost insanity. He eyed constant protection from potential threats and was so busy trying to find as many people as he could to protect him, he stopped worrying about who was protecting him, being murdered by his very own butler. Ironically, the man he came to trust the most. Montgomery Jacobs, the son of Wharton, the third CEO of Jacobs, and the CEO for the entirety of Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel, upheld the company's long-standing traditions while maintaining smooth operation for decades. During the first years of his ownership, Monty met his future wife Margaret, who was said to take no love off nobody. They swiftly married and spent many years together, having one son, Wainwright Jacobs. Later in life, Margaret was regrettably divorced for death due to unknown circumstances. The news was devastating, and to commemorate her, a nestle known as the Maggie was handcrafted by Monty himself, being painted in her favourite colour, purple. Though his relationship with his son Wainwright was strained after this, he remained dedicated to the family legacy, keeping it maintained even in Margaret's absence. Aware of the vault hidden on Eden 6, but determined to keep it a secret, Montgomery Jacobs hired the legendary vault hunter Typhon de Leon. While he didn't actually want Typhon de Leon to find the vault, and truly believed that he actually
Gateways to our research labs are open. Split up and choose a path. Control Borg cipher drones are hacked into our security fields. Defeat them.
Briefly take control of the Hard CRB. There really was the need of Eden 6 was taken back from the children of the vault. Montgomery's son, Michael CEO Jacobs took him. Wainwright Jacobs, the eldest son of Real Margaret Jacobs,
I have opened an interim gateway. Join your allies.
He wanted to keep himself
Labs are clear. The first security field has been lowered. Return to the central hub.
Legendary Typhon de Leon encouraged him to embrace these shotguns instead, leading him to gain a much-needed title running the corporation. Wainwright came to the
Our chiller is compromised. I have activated this level's gateways to assist you.
Well together, keep this the second right there. This led them to make word from planet by Lagos and the immediate later. There were also two other members of the Jacobs family that were involved, maybe the Jacobs, so Jacobs II, described as the company representative of family outreach,
You are unable to embrace perfection. We will rescue you.
Their relationship with Wainwright Jacobs is them, however, and what they handled with the one child between himself and one presence. Having died, he mentioned all. My theory is that these are the impossible steps in the Wainwright Jacobs also took the name of some distant relatives and dedicated to the big family tree on the whole. Either way, they are involved in the relation with the so they must hold some importance in that. When it comes to the military presence of the Jacobs Corporation, it seems that none is or have ever been present. Considering the sheer size of the company, that is quite concerning, but also not surprising. They really want to recognize
You triumphed. I have opened another interim gateway. Secure the remaining room.
Evolve and imperfect. You lack guidance.
Use the gateways to avoid the flux chiller's thermal blasts.
Involved vault hunters to take out the enemy. Any military that took Odo, he should have and probably would have used at that point. But no one showed up.
Defeat the Borg and use the gateways to avoid the Baryon sweep.
Almost that Jacobs do actually have is their workforce, which mainly focus on the area that Jacobs owns on Pandora, known as Jacobs Cove. This thing would feel chunks of shit with their weaponry, which is exceedingly shit for us. To where it can only be speculated at this point, but it could realistically be said for most companies. As the Jacobs Cove itself is many years old, it could also be theorized that production has been
Flux chillers are clear. The second security field is down. Return to the central hub.
Jacobs are extremely interested.
Etherians, they are tampering with all the console codes in our particle chambers.
These things are get involved in external ventures too much and stay grounded in the different family-based groups that they're founded from. It's also amazing to go into a lot of detail with the intricate lore points of this company.
Retrieve codes from the infiltrators to secure the consoles and use our transporter.
You are destroyed.
I like this being very tight in about the top two. It's their biggest threat to pertain to having struggle or help retain where they lack the don't want to protect it. And to stay in everything in the level one, you have their value thing. I like it.
Access codes can expire. Make use of them quickly.
It's shrouded in mystery below. Talk corporation, it gets me reminded that there are entities with even less than some hints point towards a beloved mystical collective not actually being the CEO anymore. Or indeed. It's that's a radioactive.
Particle chambers are clear. The final security field is down. Return to the central hub. The Kita Vault is open. You must go to the shard. I will initiate lockdown protocols.
Violence extravaganza hosted by Mr. Talk himself. They discovered a real strict policy for corporation, and also that Mr. Talk himself was the mascot of the company. Being kicked off, we are using it's said that Mr. Talk
Ascend, or fall. The Ether commands it.
Blaster with a handle price of $12 and a high five. He was later dropped from the company for threatening to kill and eat the invincible water gobbler.
Regain control of the consoles to secure the shard. This Zil.Bex construct is invulnerable to our attacks. We must defeat its drones. Retrieve the modified access codes from the Aetherian infiltrators.
Unity. The Ether pays the task.
Another success! We have regained control of the console. Our Aetherians are free.
It's all
The third console has been secured. It is a fourth console has been secured. You shall not prosper. So vows Iconia. I transported you out of there just in time. The construct is gone for now. The Iconian Alliance is indebted to you and your
as quoted from his grandma during the long story. It's also stated by President Smith that he developed the gun tech and then sold it to President Smith himself. Well, if that's the case, why are tall guns we first see on Pandora not explosive at all? But not only that, they're completely different from any kind of tall weapon we come to know later on. I obviously do know why it's a thing, but it's interesting to speculate as to why the guns are so much different than Toll's original vision at first. My headcanon for all of this is that he was developing the tech still during the events of Borderlands, but hadn't fully mastered it yet, so just something that get his foot through the door, and then introduce the tech later on. I also think that the Blaster was the sort of Django Fett of Toll weapons, being the foundations for what Toll would make tech life moving forward. That is just what my theory is, though. Leave yours down. It's always an interesting topic to discuss. The Toll Corporation sort of has a military, but not in the way you would think. In true Toll fashion, it basically just consists of regular blue-collar workers who've been given a shotgun and been told to play ball. In the words of Mr. Pleasanton himself, okay, give everybody guns. We lost half of our workforce in 3 days, but who gives a fuck? While still technically a military in the same way that other companies, as in suited up, organized soldiers, it seems that the Toll personnel can and will be equipped with any random weapons at any time of day, and will just start instantly killing everything in sight, which sounds like a military to me. Toll's army has also been seen hacking into Hyperion Logobots, turning them into their own metal operations. Whether Mr. Toll himself even knows his robot army exists is unknown. Yeah, I'm sure he'd probably find it cool as shit and ask for more guns to be strapped onto them because why not? In terms of looks, it's basically what you'd expect. Engineers, bikers, and buff dudes wearing tank tops and spiky bits, all coloured in orange and yellow and wearing funny hats. Armour is clearly not the main priority here like other armies, mostly due to the fact that all of them are semi-normal workers who've been given assault rifles. Toll as a corporation is one of the more confusing middle ground companies when it comes to what we actually know about companies and what we don't. And it seems like the people who are responsible for showing off more information about them have not only forgotten to expand their law, but somehow managed to mess up previously pre-established law we had to work with. We don't find out anything significant related to Toll after the event of Borderlands 2, which is a shame. I would love to dive more into the shady dealings going on behind the more goofy and fun persona that the Toll Corporation shows off on the surface, much like what we experienced during the Hunt of Violence extravaganza. But for now, this is all we see we have, but we'll get involved with deep secrets. Toll Corporation.
Security teams, report to Docking Bay 6.
TDO was founded on the principle that no family should be without the protection that an affordable, lightweight firearm provides. Whether you're planning on taking little Billy out to the field for his first pheasant hunt, or you need to chase some trouble off your front porch, TDO will be there for you. Over the years, TDO has built a reputation among the working class men and women of this land, providing fast reloading weapons that anyone, any budget, can afford. So the next time you're headed down to the Save and Save, why not put a little peace of mind in the car and grab yourself a TDO? TDO's pistols, shotguns, submachine guns and rifles can be found at major retailers nationwide. Up until extremely recently, TDO was known pretty much only for their wacky and outlandish gun mechanics and give a shit attitude of manufacturing, providing us with slight insights how the company operated. Across the wider known universe, TDO was branded as that weapons company that is somehow still in business, being pretty much the laughing stock of the weapons making industry. More recent events have seemingly tarnished that idea, with a grumpy yet competent CEO, the military seemingly on par without dolls, and no Mrs. TDO to be found. Known for a wide variety of offensive and defensive equipment, TDO produced every type of equipment you can think of, with shields, guns and grenades all being part of TDO's large market of armaments. They also produced the weaponry seen on top of the Outrunner vehicles. Once again, they also produce class mods, but for potential canonical reasons, I'm separating the classification between these and their legitimate businesses in the universe. When thinking of this company, you think about one thing: cheap. TDO is all about being the go-to brand for the everyday person, offering affordable equipment that are easy to get your hands on, made in an inexpensive way, with plastic parts and blonde colours. Their marketing style reflects this, focusing on family-friendly messaging and reminding customers how cheap their firearms are, often encouraging bulk purchases. TDO guns are so inexpensive that you can buy several of them for the price of just one gun from another top brand. TDO weapons are usually less expensive than Marcus' vending machines, with Marcus himself having disdain towards TDO as a brand, but no refunds means the defunct models being little to nothing to him. While their budget-friendly designs mean their equipment is worse in general to other corporations, the unique and quirky reload technology is a lifesaver. With our main weapon runs dry, having a fully loaded backup can be a game changer. The guns themselves are made from cheap, lightweight materials like plastic or fiberglass, unlike other companies that use metal or wood. In the Borderlands games, this throwaway nature of TDO guns becomes obvious starting with Borderlands 2, where their weapons don't have visible magazines. Once the ammo runs out, the gun is tossed aside and explodes. TDO doesn't play a major role in the story across the series as a whole. There are many missions involving them, being their leaders, and they're not portrayed as villains until Tales from the Borderlands 2, which could also be argued has no reason to happen. Still, their reputation for cheap products often leads to some ridicule in Borderlands 3. Both Reese and Katagura Jr. mentioned TDO as a company they'd be embarrassed to lose to. Claptrap even reports a story about another Claptrap unit's wheels melting while dating a TDO shotgun. Montgomery Jacobs bought a TDO-made navigation AI, Baylor. To save money after spending most of his money to make Malawan AI, Baylor ended up causing trouble, leading to the crash of the Jacobs flagship, the family jewel. Timothy Lawrence, who'd been stuck on the hands of Jackpot for several years, wonders if TDO is even still in business. The fact that TDO also manufactures ladders, of all things, reinforces the corporation not taking them seriously. Yes, people need ladders, but it's hard to take a company seriously as a military threat. The logo shared its entire military, but also shared by ladders. TDO and its chairwoman, Susan Caldwell, take on a more prominent role in the corporate board with their military presence on Prometheus, where they play a key part in controlling the large sense of the planet and its residents, as well as looking for potential new faults on the planet. The problem in canon is how TDO as a company and the military is handled and operates. There's also a question of motivation and their goals within the grand scheme of things, and why they and many other companies decided to involve themselves in the story of Tales from the Borderlands 2 rather than take over Prometheus as a whole. The military of TDO is fairly large and has an abundance of equipment at their disposal. Seeing as how they produce pretty much every type of ordnance, it makes a lot of sense that they operate on a larger scale and with some amount of success. They are pretty tame as a presence though, having them involved with any other armies and anything to do with major events in the Borderlands universe. One could argue that they haven't yet been developed as a company enough after the event of the first game and before the third. Their gun technology hasn't been created, or at least innovated upon yet, and no one seems to take them seriously as a weapon and equipment manufacturer, let alone as a military force.
Our intelligence services have discovered an Imperial rocket
scheme, properly designed suits and a uncharacteristic approach to the helmets. They are universally known for rank safety and every order, so it's extremely strange that the helmets are far too expensive for something that TDO would ever make, especially for a group of people that are supposed to be expendable and easily replaceable. The soldiers themselves seem to be utterly incompetent, which is actually on brand for Tedio, and definitely what I imagine them to be like. It makes you wonder how they even get anything done in the first place, let alone have a force to occupy entire planets. It seems clear that they would stand no chance against most other corporations in potential military war, especially against old powerhouses such as Dahl or Atlas. Mrs. Tedio here. I'm not going to tell you that spending inexorbitant amounts of money on weapons with silly features like elemental tech or increased damage will break the bank, leaving you so poor you're incapable of buying food, shelter, or medicine when you need it most, to the point where your desire for excessive personal protection ironically results in your own death. I never say that. I'm simply here to suggest that Tedio's weapons are so cheap that you could easily buy an entire arsenal and still have enough money left to say, buy a car, buy a house, not starve to death. Tedio. Because breaking your enemies shouldn't break the bank. Very small instances here or there, we haven't really heard or seen of Vladof, at least until very recently when Mose was introduced to us. They were always known as a combination of Eastern European and specifically Russian origins, taking slight inspiration from USSR designs, propaganda, and molecule. Other than Jacobs, Vladof is probably the most true-to-life brand out there, as it specifically takes notes from things that exist in our world already, but a spacey and slightly autistic switch on them. That also translates to its weaponry for the most part, looking the most plausible to actually exist in real life, work as intended, with exceptions of course. Dual-action spinny bombs. This also literally translates to real life, with the actual Soviet Union national anthem playing over Vladof advertisements that were frequently on the radio throughout the Ecofet. Vladof are a part of the Big Boys Club, but not the top three I mentioned. They're sort of in the same boat as Maliwan, but we'll get onto those later. They provide every single type of offensive and defensive equipment you can think of. Guns, grenade mods, shields, you name it. They take themselves very seriously and have one of the largest budgets of any manufacturers, as far as we found out anyway. They don't play around and have a more advanced weapons system than we've been led to believe in the past. Case in point is the mech suit Iron Bear, which is also fully developed by Vladof, being part of their armored Ursa Corps program. The Ursa Corps itself is one of the only officially named military operations from all of the large corporations in the universe, and the only one in Vladof that's known so far. It consists of a mechanized bipedal 15-ton Iron Bear mechs, and involves soldiers like Mose dropping into battles that are borderline unwinnable and trying to reverse the tide. Vladof themselves have made a contract system for these soldiers, claiming that after enough battles, they are free to venture elsewhere and can even take their mechs with them. The corporation of Vladof runs a strict regime, however, manipulating and deceiving their troops. It promises freedom and a life away from the military in combat. It repeatedly argues the contract of the soldiers that they haven't been fulfilled, before dropping them into one more mission that ends up being a bloodbath and spells the end for them. The true military might of Vladof is unknown apart from this very specific regiment of their army, but one thing's for sure, they definitely have one, and a large one at that. To say that if you can have multiple separate divisions dedicated to basically dropping into suicide missions, multi-million-dollar mechs specifically built and deployed to deal with said situations, and contracts led by generals that force you to go on and on until you end up being dead somewhere is the true power of a mega corporation and a mighty military. A look for this army would most likely be similar to Mose's design, with inspirations from 1980s Soviet military pieces. It's worth keeping in mind that Mose was part of a specific unit and not the general army, so this could be a specialized design and not the look of your generic soldier, but something in that ballpark would definitely be accurate. Mose also has access to a commissar's uniform, showing what the higher-ups would most likely be seen wearing on duty. Black design with the Vladof logo seen on a CO's hat shows how uniforms can be dark or have a contrast to red all over, giving leeway to a very interesting concept art, almost looking like Killzone mixed with Titanfall, which I'm a big fan of. Long winter coats for Ushanka hats, rustic-looking equipment. The possibilities for a Vladof army is huge, and I hope that they do turn up in the future to show their military might. Now, let's talk about this Big Three equation and why I think they're not technically in it as well as Maliwan. Though, unlike the Big Three, and like Maliwan itself, is the fact that we haven't really seen any of Vladof's military at all, and how the only reason we really know anything apart from their propaganda adverts is because of Mose and her background with the Ursa Corps. The fact that Marcus pretty much instantly clocked that Mose was a mech soldier and from the Ursa Corps tells me that Vladov's military operation is at least somewhat well known. It's most likely that Vladov is caught up in a war far beyond the border planets, or not with rival corporations or rogue elements, but with something or someone far outweighing anything that has caught interest to other corporations that have visited Pandora and neighbouring planets. The universe is massive, and there's no saying what the industrial might of Vladov is pursuing right now, and whether one day it might find its way into a battle we'll get involved with ourselves is unknown. The leader or CEO of at least the Vladov army is known simply as Comrade Vladov. Whether this is a stage name like Torg, or if Vladov is actually his last name is unknown. However, it seems to be the only high command name we're given to put together as to who actually runs this company. Other than that, nothing is known of him. Yeah, you aren't getting a detailed list of successes like Jacobs here. Vladov is very simplified. While it's not on the level of Dahl in terms of branding, especially on planets Dahl occupied, such as Pandora, Vladov have been seen advertising themselves on posters scattered all over, as well as previously mentioned radio and television advertisements. They don't heavily promote, but when they do, they are sure to make an impression. Maliwan is one of the most, if not the most, technologically advanced and stylistically distinct weapons and military manufacturers in the entire Borderlands universe. Known for their cutting-edge elemental technology and sleek weapon designs, Maliwan has carved out a powerful position in the Hyperion and Dahl-dominated galactic weapons market. The company's roots and operational philosophy set it apart from its more utilitarian or militaristic competitors, making it a favourite among those who value both form and function in their armaments. Founded long before the events on Pandora that led to the vault's opening, Maliwan's history is steeped in corporate ambition and scientific innovation. While the exact date of its founding has not been revealed, it is understood to have emerged as the newest Big Three weapon corporation currently operating within the Borderlands galaxy, taking it away from the former Atlas Corporation that has recently made a comeback. From the outset, Maliwan focused on elemental weapons technology, levering all of the elements to create stylish and devastating alternatives to traditional basic weaponry, unlike companies such as Jacobs, which pride themselves on raw power and old-fashioned design. Maliwan went for a futuristic, high-tech aesthetic, glowing weapons, smooth lines, bright colours and polished finishes. They also seem to produce absolutely everything: weapons, shields, grenade mods, mechs, actual shields, swords, police bots, posters, it goes on. Combat is an art. Maliwan weapons are the paint. Our elemental tech transforms the battlefield from a cacophony of idiocy to a masterpiece of destruction. The unwashed hordes will burn and fry and melt to a portrait of exquisite death. Maliwan. Beauty through destruction. Maliwan tech is notable for always featuring elemental damage, making them especially potent against every enemy that a lone survivor can come across. This emphasis on elemental specialization reflects Maliwan's core philosophy: precision and efficiency over brute force. As a result, Maliwan gear is favoured by enthusiasts who prioritise the natural elements doing their job over a lead bullet piercing the head. By the time Hyperion arrived on Pandora, Maliwan was a well-established name, though it operated more quietly compared to dominant players like Hyperion or even Dahl. Maliwan's reputation continued to grow behind the scenes, especially in the scientific and military circles, where its tech is admired and sometimes even feared. As of recent, the company had taken a bold and aggressive turn, becoming one of the primary antagonists to go up against the Crimson Raiders and even a planet itself. Maliwan's then CEO, Katagawa Jr., attempted a hostile corporate takeover of the planet Promethea, which leads to a direct conflict with the Atlas Corporation. This marks a significant shift in Maliwan's role in the time, from a respected weapons brand to a frontline villainous power engaging in open warfare. Maliwan's CEO, up until very recently, was called Katagawa Jr. Very little is known about the Maliwan family and who ran the company before his father, Katagawa Sr., so safe to say once again, Jacobs leads the way in the copious lore surrounding the background of leadership. Junior, who's mad with power, tried to seize every last asset that Promethea and other planets had to offer, even to the point of staging an invasion on the Atlas headquarters. Its leadership revealed deep practice cooperation, obsessed without maneuvering competitors and gaining personal power. He betrayed corporate ethics and even cloned himself to micromanage operation. His defeat at the hands of the Vault Hunters signified the collapse of Maliwan's short-lived militaristic expansion, but the company's legacy and advanced weaponry remained widely used across the galaxy. After this, his father Katagawa Sr. seemed to take over the company again, with him being seen in a CEO meeting between the corporations. Personally, however, I will leave this as headcanon, as anything significant that comes out of Tales from the Borderlands 2 I deem as false lore. Maliwan's army, while not seen before the events that transpired on Promethea, is vast and very technologically advanced, and argued to be the most advanced military bar none in the current universe. Whilst Hyperion would have probably outnumbered and out-egoed them in their heyday, that has long been disestablished, especially after Handsome Jack was destroyed and Helios was brought down. Dahl is contested as the largest and most significant military fleet that has ever graced the universe, but the scientific prowess and modernism of Maliwan possesses is bar none. I mean, look at the mechs they provide compared to Vlados, for example. Vlados may have more of a rough and rugged structure and hold a lot more firepower, but the Maliwan counterparts are larger, more aggressive, more varied, and more equipped. I'd personally love to see a galactic war between all the largest companies in their heyday to see what would come of it, but maybe that's never going to come. Dahl versus Hyperion is the closest